There will be spoilers for episode 8 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. He is here. The character that me and many other reviewers use to clickbait is finally here. I mean, the show itself used Daredevil as a bait for fans as well, but that's irrelevant now. Now that he's finally here, I have only two questions. First, did they ruin his character or not? And second, was that it? Was that all? Well, we will discuss that in details as I start the review. This episode starts just like every other She-Hulk episode, with a new case for Jennifer that, as we all know, will be solved within the episode. This time it is solved within the first 10 minutes of the episode since they had a bigger fish to fry, aka introduced Daredevil. Matt Murdock is introduced fairly earlier. You see, Jen's client this time is Eugene, aka Leapfrog, and he accuses Luke Jacobson, the tailor who made She-Hulk and Daredevil supersuits, of making him a supersuit that malfunctioned. And since he has connections in the firm Jen works in, she has no choice but to represent him. And since it's a trial, Luke needs a lawyer too. And his lawyer is none other than Matt Murdock. Yep, Matt Murdock, our boy.
Oh yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
Luke probably called in favor for making him his new supersuit. Anyways, I'm glad that they introduced Matt early on, cause I was worried they will drag the show even more and will introduce him at the end of the episode, leaving fans hanging for the finale of the show. I think it was a great way to introduce him against Jen in what can be best described as the only halfway decent trial scene in this show. While Matt appears within first 7 minutes, Daredevil doesn't appear until 14 or 15 minutes. And when he does appear, it's actually a pretty cool way to introduce him.
You need to back off.
Look at that. Tell me that's not badass. But while his introduction was cool, and it was nice to have Daredevil do his Daredevil shit in a high budget MCU show, but I wasn't a fan of how easily he got his marks removed by She-Hulk. I know Daredevil is going to be a street level superhero in MCU, but I still wonder if he got caught so easily by She-Hulk, who was only trying to stop him, not hurt him. Then how will he stand against some bigger MCU villains?
Are you kidding me? I'm blind.
I guess we will see. But I didn't like that, and I didn't like some of the jokes he made or comedic bits he was involved in.
My ass remains unwhooped.
Why didn't you tell me that before we fought?
Why didn't you ask me before immediately trying to whoop my ass?
Other than that, this episode was the best one of the show so far, and I think they managed him pretty well. I liked his more cheery side. He was really likable, though I don't understand why he was so out of breath most of the episode. I understand him being out of breath when he is Daredevil cause he is doing action and all that, but even in the bar scene, Matt seemed so out of breath. Was that a detail I missed? Were they trying to show that Matt was doing his Daredevil stuff before he came to the bar? I don't know. Anyways, I won't say they ruined Daredevil cause they didn't.
My ass remains unwhooped.
At least so far. I know Netflix Daredevil was really dark, but I think most people forget even that version of Matt had lighter and cheery moments too. I actually like those moments cause it was a break from the dark broody character. He would occasionally make sarcastic remarks or jokes, and I always liked those.
You look like an idiot.
Short scarf.
Now we will get a lot more of those moments. You have to understand this is a newer version of the character played by the same actor. He is not a Daredevil from Netflix shows. He is Daredevil for MCU's universe. So am I okay with this version? Well, if they can make some changes to the character, then sure. It's better than having no Daredevil. While I liked his cheery side mostly, but I hope they will cut back on including Daredevil in such scenes and make him more serious. He was still smart and mature, but spoilers from No Way Home. It was like Tobey Maguire in No Way Home. he was just smiling through most of his scenes, and while it worked for Tobey's Spider-Man Return, it felt weird for Daredevil. I guess this version of the character is supposed to be a lot more confident in himself, but I just hope he will be smiling less next time we see him and be more serious. Also, I hope they will stop shying away from characters' brutality as much as they can, cause while his strikes seemed brutal in the episode, but they will just immediately cut away to avoid showing that he did something brutal. So for Echo or his own show, I hope they will stop doing that and make him more serious. If they can't go as dark as Multiverse of Madness, then even the tone of shows like Loki or Moon Knight can work for Daredevil. Have other characters do comedy and Matt can react to it in his slightly more cherry than Netflix version shelf. But do that only with Matt. When he's Daredevil, it's real business. Then no jokes, no nothing, don't hold back. Obviously no bloody stuff cause Disney. But don't have camera cuts after every brutal punch. He delivers. We want a hallway scene that is on the level of Netflix Daredevil. Also, this makes me wonder. At least Daredevil had a lighter side that they can work around. But if the rumors are true, how will they handle the Punisher? It is impossible to have Punisher without having your white walls painted red. Maybe it would have been a better idea to introduce him in Deadpool 3, which is already a R-rated movie. But I guess they have to test out the less violent version of the character. So maybe introducing him in Daredevil Born Again is the right idea. We will see. Anyways, Charlie Cox was awesome in the episode. He was really confident and charming in the role.
I think you're in a unique position to do some real good. You see, the way I see it, Jen Walters can use the law to help people when society fails them. And She-Hulk can help people when the law fails them.
I hope he will appear in episode 9 as well, cause they have been teasing it for so long. It couldn't be just this one episode. In the end of the episode, they revealed that Matt is leaving for New York. But I hope they will show that Matt heard what happened with She-Hulk at the gala and he stayed behind to help her. Charlie Cox had great chemistry with Tatiana Maslany, though I'm not sure how I feel about Matt and Jen as couple. They were surely teasing it the whole episode, and I knew it was coming, but I was still shocked when it actually happened. I'm not sure what to think of it. I have to watch more to make some opinion about it. And Tatiana Maslany is great as always. In the episode in which Daredevil returned, it was really easy to be foreshadowed by that, but she holds her own. Overall, this is easily the best episode of this show so far. I think this confirms my theory that they made this show drag on purpose so when Daredevil appears and things start getting better, his return would seem even bigger. But it was a good episode, and that ending was the first time I felt engaged by what's happening in the show. I'm excited to see what happens next. Also, credits where it's due. I like how advanced planned MCU is. Just 3 or 4 days ago, Black Panther Wakanda Forever's trailer came out. And in this episode, there's a whole scene where they talk about Wakanda. About a week or 2 ago, Hugh Jackman's return as Wolverine was confirmed, and in this episode there's a reference to Wolverine. So I'm sure they planned these references to recently revealed stuff in advance, and that's kinda cool. Anyways, I've been rambling for too long, I must go now. So if you liked the video, press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment below if you like this new lighter version of Daredevil or not, and how can they improve the character in his next projects. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.
My ass remains unwhooped. My ass remains unwhooped.
Expelliarmus!
My ass remains unwhooped. My ass remains unwhooped. My ass remains unwhooped.
Enough is enough! I have had it